What if everything you've been told about who you are is a lie? You've been living your whole life thinking you're just a human, a body, a name, a personality. But what if that identity is just a mask? What if this entire life is a spiritual test and no one ever told you? In this video, I'm going to expose the illusion that's been shaping your thoughts, your choices, and your suffering. You'll understand why you feel lost, even when life looks fine, and why nothing outside of you has ever truly filled that void inside. Here's the truth most people are never ready to hear. You're not meant to survive this life. You're meant to wake up through it. The chaos, the pain, the confusion, they're not random. They're messages, tests. And if you felt like you don't belong here or that something's off with reality, you're not broken. You're waking up. You're starting to see what's real. And the faster you grasp this, the faster you stop suffering and start living with clarity, purpose, and power. Ready to see beyond the illusion. Then press play. Your real life is about to begin. 1. The illusion of being human. Most people walk through life believing they're just a name, a job title, or a body that eventually breaks down. They get so wrapped up in roles, father, employee, provider, that they forget all of it is temporary. When someone loses their job or goes through a breakup, it feels like the end of the world. But that pain only comes because their identity was tied to something that was never truly them. That's the illusion, thinking the mask is your face. And that illusion keeps people stuck. This false identity leads to endless comparison. He has more money, she's better looking, they're more successful. But all of this comes from the ego trying to survive by being seen, validated, or envied. When you believe you're just this human character, every setback feels personal, like an attack. You start reacting out of fear, not awareness. You defend your image, protect your pride, and forget the voice inside that's always been calm, clear, and untouched. You see it every day, people chasing status, obsessing over wrinkles, terrified of aging, as if their worth dies when the body changes. But if you knew who you really were, you'd laugh at how much energy we waste trying to hold up this fake version of ourselves. You'd stop treating life like a performance. Real freedom begins when you stop acting and start observing. When you realize the role was never the real you. A man once said, "I lost everything and it was the best thing that ever happened to me." Why? Because in losing the illusion, he found the truth. That truth doesn't shout, it whispers. It's your inner voice, the quiet awareness behind every thought and emotion. But most people never stop to hear it. They're too busy surviving inside an identity that was never theirs to begin with. And this is where confusion starts to creep in. 2. Why this life feels so confusing. There's a reason so many people feel like they're wandering through life with no map. It's like being thrown into an exam room without even knowing you're taking a test. You try to play the game, get the job, pay the bills, raise the kids, but something always feels off, like you're missing a page in the script. You feel like you're doing everything right, yet deep down, there's this strange emptiness. That emptiness is your inner voice trying to remind you that this isn't what you came here for. When someone lives disconnected from awareness, they start building a life around things that don't truly matter. And slowly, the illusion becomes thicker. You begin chasing goals that were never yours. You try to impress people you don't even like. You fight to prove yourself in a system that's broken. That's why people can have a house, a car, a family, and still feel lost. They're living someone else's life. The ego loves distraction, and confusion is its playground. Men especially feel this pressure to hold everything together while silently crumbling inside. They were told to man up, stay logical, stay useful, but never told how to listen to their own soul, so they try to outrun the confusion by doing more work, more noise, more pushing. But they never pause to ask the one question that could change everything. Who am I beneath all this? And when they finally do, the whole game shifts. Confusion, in truth, is a doorway. It shows up when your awareness starts waking up, but your mind is still clinging to the illusion. It's like a glitch in the matrix, a brief moment where something feels off, and you can't explain why. That's not something to fear. That's the crack where the light comes in. And if you stay with it, if you don't run from it, you'll start seeing the hidden meaning behind every confusing experience. That's when you realize this isn't chaos, it's a test. 3. The test hidden in every experience. Every situation you face, especially the uncomfortable ones, is a hidden invitation to remember who you are. That argument with your partner, that moment of rejection, that failed plan, all of it is part of a test, not to punish you, but to see if you'll listen to your inner voice instead of reacting from your ego. Most people miss the point because they're busy blaming, running, or numbing the pain. But the ones who pause and reflect, they start to pass the real test. The challenge is that these tests rarely come with a label. There's no warning that says, hey, this frustration is an opportunity for awareness. You're just thrown into the fire and expected to remember the flame doesn't burn your real self. You might lose your job and think it's the worst moment of your life, but maybe it's the lesson that breaks your dependency on external validation. Maybe the discomfort was the only thing that could wake you up. Growth isn't always gentle, and the test isn't always obvious. When you see life this way, even the smallest moments become spiritual practice. A traffic jam becomes a test in patience. A rude comment becomes a test in ego control. That silence after being ignored becomes a test in whether you'll trust your worth or chase approval. Suddenly, everything is sacred. And once you realize that, you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That single shift in awareness changes everything. If you think about it, no one escapes the test. It just comes in different forms for each of us. But the key isn't to win at life. The key is to remember while you're in it. Your job isn't to avoid difficulty. Your job is to stay conscious through it. Each experience, even the painful ones, is helping you peel back the illusion layer by layer. And the more you remember, the more clearly you'll see the one force that's been making the test harder than it needs to be. 4. The game of the ego and the false self. The ego is clever. It doesn't show up as some villain in your mind. It shows up as you. It wears your face, uses your voice, and convinces you that survival, status, and control are all that matter. It constantly says, you need to be more, or you're not enough. And you listen because it sounds familiar. But that voice isn't your inner voice. It's the noise that drowns it out. And as long as you're caught in the game, you'll keep reacting instead of remembering who's actually playing. The ego loves speed, urgency, and drama. It keeps you jumping from one distraction to the next, so you never stop long enough to question the illusion. That's why silence feels so uncomfortable to most people. It threatens the ego's control. It's in those quiet moments, when the mind slows down, that awareness can finally be heard. That's when the inner voice starts whispering truths you've forgotten. But the ego won't let go without a fight. It will try to convince you that slowing down means falling behind. The ego's favorite game is comparison. It tricks you into thinking your worth is measured by how well you're doing compared to someone else's illusion. And while you're chasing goals that don't even belong to you, you lose the one thing that's real: presence. A man might spend 20 years building a life only to realize he's built a cage. He thought he was creating freedom, but he was just reinforcing the mask. That's how sneaky the ego can be. It sells you illusion as success. But here's the catch. The ego can't survive in awareness. The moment you observe it without reacting, it loses power. Try it. Next time you feel triggered, don't act. Just watch. Feel the urge to respond, to defend, to prove something, and let it pass like a wave. That space between stimulus and response, that's where your real self lives. The more time you spend there, the less grip the ego has. And that's when you start noticing strange signs that something inside you is waking up. 5. Signs that you're waking up. You start to feel like you don't fit in anymore. The same conversations that once excited you now feel empty. The goals you used to chase suddenly seem pointless. It's not depression, it's disconnection from the illusion. You're not breaking down, you're breaking free, and it's uncomfortable because you're peeling off a false identity that you wore your entire life. That discomfort is sacred. It means awareness is finally making its way to the surface. You might notice strange synchronicities, seeing repeating numbers, thinking about someone and they call, dreaming things that later happen. These aren't coincidences. They're winks from the universe saying, "You're remembering." The more you observe instead of react, the more these signs increase. They're not there to entertain you, they're there to train your inner voice. Every weird thing is helping you rebuild trust in a deeper intelligence that isn't logical, but is always precise. You'll probably feel like you're failing at life, and that's a good sign, because the system you were trying to succeed in was never real. You're starting to measure life by different standards now. Peace over performance, presence over pressure. That shift feels like losing your grip, but you're not losing anything that matters. You're just shedding layers of ego that no longer fit. And what remains underneath is real, solid, and eternal. People might say, "You've changed." And they're right. You're no longer interested in playing a game you didn't sign up for. You're not craving approval. You're seeking truth. You're not numbing the pain. You're feeling everything and finally understanding why it's there. The old you would have reacted, defended, or blamed, but the new you is starting to watch. And that awareness, that's the beginning of passing the test. And it all starts with one thing. 6. The role of awareness in passing the test. Awareness is what allows you to see the storm without being pulled into it. Most people are tossed around by life because they never stop to watch what's happening. They just react. But when you're aware, you become the calm eye of the hurricane. You still feel the wind, but it doesn't move you the same way. You realize you have a choice: act from ego or respond from presence. That single choice, made consistently, is what transforms your entire life. It's not about being perfect or spiritual 24/7. It's about catching yourself a little earlier each time. You start noticing your triggers, your patterns, your unconscious reactions. Instead of yelling back, you pause. Instead of proving a point, you listen. That space between impulse and action, that's your power. It's in that space that your inner voice speaks. And the more you listen to it, the more aligned your choices become. That's not just awareness, that's mastery in motion. Practical awareness can look simple: turning off your phone during meals, walking without headphones, journaling before bed, or meditating in silence for 5 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be dramatic, it just has to be consistent. The key is to make space for observation without judgment. That's when your awareness sharpens and the illusion begins to fade. You're no longer acting from your programming. You're responding from your essence. And when you start passing those small tests, responding instead of reacting, staying present instead of distracted, you begin to feel something powerful shift. Life stops feeling like a trap and starts feeling like a training ground. You see clearly what's real and what's noise. And just when you think you've figured it out, something unexpected happens. A deeper truth starts knocking, a bigger question rises, and it's one you've carried your whole life without even knowing. 7. You weren't supposed to know, until now. It's strange, isn't it? You've spent your whole life feeling like something was missing, like the world didn't quite make sense, and now you're finding out that was part of the plan. You weren't supposed to know the truth from the beginning. That would have ruined the whole test. The forgetting was necessary so the remembering could mean something. Without the illusion, there's no awakening. And without the ego, there's no growth. That's the game, learning to see what was always there. Most people never reach this point. They live and die inside a role they didn't choose, playing by rules no one explained. But you started asking the right questions. You started listening to that subtle pull inside. You didn't numb it or explain it away. And because of that, your awareness cracked open. You realized that the voice inside, the one that's been quietly guiding you since childhood, isn't your imagination. It's the part of you that never forgot who you really are. You chose to forget. Yes, you. That might sound insane at first, but the soul is timeless, and from that eternal vantage point, this life is like a classroom. You enrolled, you designed the syllabus. You even picked your biggest challenges on purpose, not to suffer, but to wake up through them. That's why certain patterns keep repeating. They're not curses, they're reminders. Until the lesson is learned, the test returns. But this time, you're finally aware that you're being tested. Now the rules change. You stop taking things so personally. You stop reacting to every external event like it's the enemy. Instead, you look within. You question. You feel. You remember. And the more you remember, the more you realize you were never just human. You've always been something greater, something beyond the mask. And what's coming next? It's not another answer, it's a mission, something that only awakened eyes can see. If you want to elevate your vibrations and manifest with more ease, I have prepared something special for you. Click the link in the first pinned comment and join us in the journey of awakening your inner mage.